didn't want you to think I was like trying to be sick or
Okay. That's, yep, you can definitely. Okay. So, we focused on trinomials on Monday. We started that. So, if we look up here, we have trinomials, and what is in front of the x squared? What number is up here that's in front of the x squared? 1. Okay? So, and we did these. We did these on Monday. But I just want to hit a couple things about this. When I am factoring trinomials, where the value in front of the x squared is 1, this number right here is my product. And this number right here is my sum. Okay? So my product for my first trinomial here is positive 12. And my sum for this trinomial is positive 8. Okay? And we did this one. When I multiply two numbers together to get 12 and add those two numbers together to get 8, my numbers are x plus 6 and x plus 2. Those are the numbers, 6 and 2. Now on this one, x squared minus 10x plus 24, I have a positive product again. I have positive 24, and my sum is negative 10. So I have a positive product and a negative sum. So I'm looking for two numbers. When I multiply those two numbers together, I get 24. And when I add those two numbers together, I get negative 10. And those numbers are negative 6 and negative 4, because negative 6 times negative 4 gives me positive 24, and negative 6 plus negative 4 gives me negative 10. Okay? Now I want us to look at this. This is our next one, and I don't think we did these on Tuesday or Monday. We ran out of time. Here, my product is negative, and my sum is positive. Okay? So I want us to take a few minutes before we factor these two examples, and I want us to narrow down some of our guess and check. Because when we've identified our product and we've identified our sum, we are doing some guess and check to find the two numbers. So I want us to get some guidelines in our brain that can help us with that. So, hints for finding our numbers. If my product is positive, so that's like this screen right here, okay? My product on one of them was positive 12. My product on the other one was positive 24. When my product is positive, what is the only way that I can get a positive number when I multiply two numbers together?
Two negatives.
Two negatives. So I can say a negative times a negative. Okay, what's another way? Two positives. Is there any other way to do it? No. Okay? So if I have a positive product, so when I'm factoring and I have a positive product, I have to have two numbers that are positive, or I have to have two numbers that are both negative. There is no other way. Okay? Now, if I've got two numbers that are positive, so let's say 3 times 6. 3 times 6. They're both positive, so I multiply those together, I get a positive number. When I add those two numbers together, what kind of number am I going to get? positive number. Okay? So my sum in this situation is also positive. Now, for the other situation where I've got two numbers that are negative, let's say I've got -3 and -6. When I multiply -3 times -6, what kind of number do I get? A positive number. When I add -3 and -6, what kind of sum do I get? A negative sum. So in this situation, my sum is negative. Okay? My sum is negative. And I know that Doceri desktop is kind of on top of it. I'll get rid of that one day. It just costs $30. Okay? And I'm getting a new computer, and so I want the department to pay for it, and so I'm just kind of doing the trial version until I get my new computer, okay, from the school. Okay, so my sum is negative. Now, the other thing that you need to know, we are adding absolute values here. Okay? So, when I get a positive number plus a positive number, I'm adding those two together, I get a positive sum, and I've added absolute values. When I have a negative number plus a negative number, I'm adding their absolute values together, and I get a negative answer. My answer is negative, okay? So these are the scenarios that you're looking at, and there's really two scenarios when you are dealing with a positive product. So it is helpful to look at that product and actually say to yourself, okay, that's a positive product. Therefore, both my numbers have to be positive or both my numbers have to be negative. Now, look at this. Now we're looking at a negative product. Now I have a negative product. Okay? What is the scenario when I have a negative product? What is the only way for me to get a negative product? I have a positive and a negative. There's no other way. I've got to have one positive and I've got to have one negative. So when I've got a negative product, I'm looking for one number that's positive and I'm looking for one number that's negative. That's what I'm looking for. Okay? Positive times a negative. That is the only way. So one number is positive and one number is negative. Now let's remember our rules. Let's remember our rules for adding positive and negative numbers. Okay? If I've got -10 plus +4, -10 plus +4, am I adding or am I subtracting absolute values? I'm subtracting. Good. When my signs are different, I'm subtracting. Okay, I subtract absolute values. Okay, that is an important thing to remember what you're dealing with when you've got a negative product. Okay? And I take the sign of the number with higher absolute value. Okay, so in -10 plus 4, what is my answer? Why negative?
Because the 10 is negative and has a higher absolute value.
Absolutely. So my answer to this is -6. The reason that it's negative is because my -10 has the higher absolute value. It is further from 0. Now remember, I told you that we are working backwards. Factoring is working backwards. Okay? So we are going to be given the product, or you're going to identify the product. You have to look a little bit. Then you're going to identify the sum, and then you're going to figure out the numbers. So if I tell you that my two numbers are 8 and 7, and when I add them together, I get -1, you have to identify which one of those is negative. Which one of those is negative? Whoops, I did it again. I'm in the dossier. Okay? So if I've got 8 plus 7, and when I add my numbers together, I tell you I get a -1, you have to figure out which one of these is negative. So which one's negative?
8.
Why?
Higher absolute value.
Yes. Okay? It's the 8. Because my number is negative, so in this scenario right here, if your sum is negative, the number with the higher absolute value is going to be negative. If your sum is positive, the number with the higher absolute value is going to be positive. Okay? Now, this doesn't take all the guess and check out. You're still doing some guessing and checking, but it gives you some guidelines to go by. It gives you some guidelines to go by. So let's go back to this one. So I've got x squared plus 7x minus 30. X squared plus 7x minus 30. My product is -30. My sum is +7. So what we know about this is I'm going to have one positive number and I'm going to have one negative number. So I could go ahead and write that. I could say x plus some number and x minus some number. Okay? Now, this is where the guess and check comes in. What I do is I start writing down factors of 30. So I would say 6 times 5, 2 times 15, 30 times 1, 10 times 3. That's the guess and check. You've got to be able to list factors. Now what I'm looking for is I'm looking for two numbers whose, when I subtract them, I get 7. So what two numbers do I have up there?
10 and 3.
Okay, 10 and 3. Now, when I add 10 and 3 together, I have to get +7. Because my sum is positive, that means the greater absolute value is going to be positive. And which one has the higher absolute value, 10 or 3? 10. So my 3 is going to be what?
Negative.
Good. Okay. So then I've got x plus 10 and x minus 3. And this is my answer. This is how I identify this. Okay. And then you check yourself. 10 times -3 is -30. 10 plus -3 is +7. That's how I check myself. Okay. Now I'm going to give you 60 seconds to do n squared minus n minus 72. And I'll get you started. What's our sum?
-72. Actually, no.
Nope.
-1.
-1. Good. What's -72?
Got it.
Good. Okay, you guys try it.
Did you also do FOIL to check the final product?
FOIL, you can check the final product with FOIL. What I do is I often start writing factors of 72. I write factors of 72. Okay. So what I did is I wrote my factors of 72. I've got 6 times 12, 36 times 2, 1 times 72, and 8 times 9. These, yes, it is. It's 8 times 9. That's the one we're going to use, is 8 times 9. Now, I know and the reason that I know it's 8 times 9, because when I subtract the 2, I get a 1. But I have to get a negative 1. So is my 8 or is my 9 going to be negative? 9. You got it. You guys are good. So I have n plus 8 and n minus 9. Okay? What if you wrote it like this? What if you wrote n minus 9, n plus 8? Is that okay? Yes, it is. What if I wrote n minus 8, n plus 9? Is that okay? No. No, this is not, because that is different values. Okay? Good job. Okay, are we ready? Okay. Now, if you come to class Friday and you've got everything up until this point right here, like if you've done everything on your homework, where you've got greatest common factor, you've got difference of perfect squares, and you're able to factor trinomials with a 1 in front of it. On Friday, you'll get this, no problem, okay? This is typically where students struggle. So I have tried to break it down into systematic steps and eliminate as much of the guess and check as I can. So let's talk about what we're doing here. Okay. The difference here is that we have a number other than 1 in front of our x squared. Okay? We have a number other than 1 in front of our x squared. And typically, this is where students fall apart with factoring. Okay? You can master everything else. This is where you need to spend some of your time. Now, one of my problems was x squared plus 8x plus 12, okay? And I said that my product was my C value, okay? And that's my 12. When we have a number in front of x squared, to find our product, we have to multiply A times C. So I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to multiply it times that 5. Now, what we were doing is we had a 1 in front of that, right? We had a 1 in front of the x squared plus 8x plus 12. If I multiplied 1 times 12, or 1 times my C, do I still get my C value? So we were doing the same thing, but because there was a 1 in front of it, we didn't have to worry about that A value. So we're not really doing something different. We were multiplying by 1, and so it didn't change the value of that. Okay, so what you have to do here, our first step, find your product by multiplying A and C. Okay? So my product here is what? What's my product for this one? 10. My product is 10. Okay? Now, identify your sum. And your sum is still the value B. Value B is your sum. Okay? So what's my sum in this situation? 11. Okay? So it's still my B value. Okay, now, you are going to find two numbers who multiply to get my product. And add to get my sum. Sounds familiar, right? Okay. Okay, so we're still kind of doing the same thing. We've just got to, in order to get our product, we had to do A times C. So I need two numbers that when I multiply them together, I get 10. And when I add them together, I get 11. Multiply together, get 10, and add them together, I get 11. What are those two numbers? 10 and 1. 10 and 1. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. Okay? So my numbers are 10 and 1. Okay? Can I erase the steps 1, 2, 3? Can I erase those? Okay. Okay. Now, this is where it's different. So I'm going to put a star right here because this is where students sometimes get confused. Okay? So are we on step 4? That's our step 4. Okay, this is the step that's different. Okay, you are going to take your B term and you're going to split it using this 10 and 1. That's what we're going to do. Okay? What students want to do, and this is the wrong way to do it, what students want to do after they've identified their 10 and their 1 is they want their answer to be x plus 10 and x plus 1. But if I FOILed x plus 10 times x plus 1, I wouldn't get 2x squared plus 11x plus 15, or plus 5. I wouldn't get that. So this is wrong. But that's what students want to do. They've identified the correct numbers, but they're not doing the correct number 4 step. And this is different because we've got a value in front of that x squared. So I am going to split my B term into 2 terms using the numbers I identified in number 3. Okay, so the numbers I identified in number 3 are 10 and 1. So I am going to take that 11x and I'm going to change that to 10x plus 1x. Is 10x plus 1x the same thing as 11x? Yes. So I have split that term. I'm going to bring down my 2x squared, and I'm going to bring down my 5. Does that look like anything we've done before? 2x squared plus 10x plus 1x plus 5. What does it look like? What type of factoring? Yes. Yes, I heard it. Factor by grouping. So now we finish this off. We factor by grouping. Okay? We factor by grouping. So, what comes out of 2x squared and 10x? You got it, 2x. 2x. So then I'm left with x plus 5. Now, is there anything other than 1 that I can take out of these two? No. So I have to write the 1 down. I have to write plus 1 because that's part of our factoring. Okay, I have to write that. So I'm going to do x plus 5. Okay, do you see, and remember when we factor by grouping, these two things have to be exactly the same. And so my factors, or my final answer is x plus 5 times 2x plus 5. That's my answer right there. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. It is 2x plus 1. Thank you. Okay. Are we ready to do another one? Okay. So here's another one. 10x squared minus 17x plus 3. My product is my A value times my C value. A times C. So I've got 10 times 3. What is 10 times 3? 30. Okay, and my sum is what? Negative 17. Okay? Because my product is positive, I'm looking for two numbers that are positive or two numbers that are negative. They've got to be the same sign. What can you tell me since my sum is negative? I have a positive product and a negative sum. What are my numbers going to be? They're both going to be negative. Okay? Both numbers are negative. Okay, so now what I do is I start writing down factors of 30. Okay, I've got 6 times 5 is 30. 10 times 3 is 30. 15 times 2 is 30. Which numbers? 15 and 2. And they're both going to be negative. It's got to be negative 15 and it's got to be negative 2. It has to be. Because negative 15 times negative 2 is positive 30. Negative 15 plus negative 2 is negative 17. Okay? So now I split my negative 17. I split my negative 17. So I'm going to write 10x squared minus 15x minus 2x plus 3. Okay? So now, what comes out of the first two? I heard it. 5x. So I'm going to have 5x. 5x times 2x gives me 10x squared. 5x minus 3 gives me negative. Where's the negative 5x? I'm sorry? I would not take the negative from the 5x. I would take the negative from the second one. Okay? And just typically that first number is going to be positive with that x value. It doesn't have to work out that way, but very often it does. Okay? And you are correct. We are going to have to take a negative out. So we're going to take our negative out with our second one. Okay? So I have negative 1 and positive 2x minus 3. So I have 5x minus 1 and 2x minus 3. Okay. Now I want you guys to try one on your own. You're going to try one on your own. I'm going to get you started though. Okay? My product for this one is my A times C. What's my product?
60.
It's not 60. Be careful. Negative 60. Okay? Do you see that?
I missed that sign.
That's okay. Negative 60. My sum is negative 11. Because I have a negative product, you are looking for one positive number and one negative number. Okay? So I am going to give you a minute to work on that. Okay? Okay. So now we're going to work this one out. I always start with my product. So I've got negative 60. So I'm just going to list everything that multiplied together gives me 60. And this is where the guess and check is, right here, when you're multiplying out to see what multiplied together gets 60. Okay, so you're going to have to list some different things. Because it ends in a 0, I know that 10 goes into it. So I'm going to say 6 times 10. Because it ends in a 0, I know 5 goes into it. So I'm going to say 5 times 12. Because it ends in a 0, I also know that it's even and 2 goes into it. So I have 2 times 30. Okay. Another one is 4 times 15. What I'm looking for is because one of my numbers has to be positive, so I'm going to have one positive number and one negative number. I'm looking for the difference of those two numbers to be the negative 11. So when I subtract them, when I subtract their absolute values, I'm going to get 11. So which one of these fits that? 4 and 15. Okay? So now I have to decide, is the 4 negative or is the 15 negative? Tell me why. Yes. What's your sum? Good. The sum is negative. So our greater absolute value has to be the one that's negative. So my two numbers, good job, Casanova, is 4. Whoops. The two numbers that I'm using are 4 and negative 15. Okay? And it's the greater absolute value has to be negative because our sum is negative. My next step, I split my negative 11. Okay? So I have 6x squared plus 4x minus 15x minus 10. Okay? So all I did was I split that negative 11. Now, did anyone do 6x squared minus 15x plus 4x minus 10? Did anybody do it that way? Okay, either way is completely fine. And I'm going to show you that you get to the same exact spot no matter what. Okay? What comes out of 6x squared and 4x? Good. I heard a 2x. So 2x comes out of that. I'm left with 3x plus 2. Now, because this 15 is negative, that's a clue that you're probably going to have to take out a negative number here. Okay? And we are. We're going to take out a minus 5. And when I take out minus 5, I'm left with 3x plus 2. So my answer here is 2x minus 5 and 3x plus 2. Now, I had a group that just put these in a different order. Instead of plus 4x minus 15x, they did minus 15x plus 4x. Completely fine. And some might argue slightly better. Okay? Because here, I take out a 3x. Okay? And then I'm left with 2x minus 5. Okay? Then I take out a 2. And I don't have to worry about it being negative. And I'm left with 2x minus 5. Do I get exactly the same thing?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, why do you say pretty much? Because I put them in a different order?
Yes.
Yes, okay, the order doesn't matter. 3x plus 2 and 2x minus 5, it's like saying 2 times 3 is 6 and 3 times 2 is 6. It doesn't matter. Now, I will tell you that this is wrong. Okay, so if I ended up with this, That is wrong. Why is it wrong?
The signs are backwards.
The signs are backwards. So be careful. Make sure that you've got your signs in the right spot. Okay. Now, I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay. 4x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay. My product here is my A times my C, and that's going to be 36. My sum here is positive 6. Okay, so I've got 36 and I've got 6. So I'm trying to find numbers multiplied together give me 36, and added together give me 6. And they both have to be positive. Okay, and so when I start writing this down, I've got 9 times 4, 18 times 2, 12 times 3. Do any of those add up to give me 6? No. This particular problem is not factorable. Okay, it's called a prime factorable. It's called a prime polynomial or a prime trinomial. Now, my students want every single problem on homework to be prime. And sometimes I'll get homework and it'll say prime, 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 or not factorable, not factorable, not factorable. This is not nearly as common as you want it to be. There may be 1, maybe 2 on homework. On Friday, there won't be more than 1. On your quiz, there probably won't be any. And I'll tell you how many you're looking for, because there are not as many of these as you want there to be. And a lot of students write down prime when you've got to stick with it a little bit longer to try to find those numbers. Okay, so just be careful of that. Don't put prime or not factorable down for all of them. Okay? Now, there's one more thing I want to show you. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes left. I want us to look at this right here. Okay? I have something that looks like a trinomial, and it actually is a trinomial. X squared minus 11x minus 12. But my directions don't say factor. What do my directions say? It says to solve. Okay, so that's my first clue, is that my directions say solve. There's another clue in here that we're doing something different. What's the other clue? The equal sign. Okay? So the equal sign is kind of a red flag that we're doing something different. In this situation, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for what's called zeros of a function. They're also called solutions of a function. They're also my x-intercepts of my function. Okay? They're my x-intercepts. So, the first thing that we do when we are solving this is we make sure our polynomial, and polynomial is just a multi-term, can be 3 terms, 4 terms, 5 terms. Make sure our polynomial is set equal to 0. Okay? Is this one already set equal to 0? Yes, it is. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to factor it. Okay? So I'm going to factor. So I am looking for a product of negative 12 and a sum of negative 11. So I'm looking for 2 numbers multiplied together give me negative 12 and added together give me negative 11. Now I know that I'm going to have one positive number and one negative number because I have a negative product. That's how I know I'm going to have one positive and one negative. Why am I able to go from x squared minus 11x minus 12 immediately to 2 binomials? I wasn't able to do that on these. So what's different between this right here and this one? I heard it. There's no number in front of the x squared. Or what is the number in front of the x squared? 1. Okay? So then we can go straight to the two binomials. If I've got a number in front of the x squared, I've got to kind of break it down further. Okay? So what are my two numbers? If my product's negative 12 and my sum's negative 11, what are my two numbers? 12 and 1. Which one's negative? 12. Why is the 12 negative? It's the higher absolute value, and my sum has to be negative. So that's why the 12 is negative. Okay? Now, so I'm good. I've made sure it's set equal to 0. I have factored it. Now, you are going to set each factor equal to 0. And then you're going to solve. So I have two factors here. Okay, I have two factors. I have x plus 1 and I have x minus 2. Okay, and those are equal to 0. So I am going to take x plus 1 and set that equal to 0. Then I'm going to take x minus 12 and set that equal to 0. Okay, when I solve that, I have x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 12. So my solutions, and they can be called solutions, they can be called zeros, and they can be called x-intercepts. Okay? My solutions to this are negative 1 and 12. That's where my graph crosses the x-axis. These right here are my factors. X plus 1 and x minus 12 are my factors. What do you notice is the difference between my factors and my solutions? What do you notice? What do you notice between x plus 1 and x equals negative 1? They're reversed. Okay? And that makes a difference. Okay, now we're not going to do this one. We've got time. Oh, we definitely have time. Okay, so let's do this one. Now, my A is not 1 in this one. What's my A? Okay, my A is 20. My product is going to be that. Okay, so my product is A times C. A times C. So my product here is negative 60. What's my sum? 7. It's positive 7. Because I have a negative sum, I'm looking for one positive number and one negative number. Okay? So I've got 2 times 30. I've got 6 times 10. 5 times 12. Didn't we just do a 60? Is that all of them? So which one of those, if I subtract, is going to give me 7?
12 and 5.
Good. 12 and 5. I have a positive sum, so which one's positive? The 12. Good. You guys got it. Okay? So now I am going to split that 7x. Nope. 12 and 5. What did I do? Oh, no, it's negative 5, right? This is what happens when I get in a hurry. 12 and negative 5 is going to be positive 7. Okay, so I have 20x squared plus 12x minus 5x minus 3. Okay, I ask myself what goes into both of these, and it's 4x. So 4x goes into both of those. I'm left with 5x plus 3. Now I need to take a negative 1 out of that. So my next one, I'm taking negative 1 out, and I'm left with 5x plus 3. Okay, so I have factored this. Okay, and then my next step is to set each one of them equal to 0. So I have 4x minus 1 equals 0. 5x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, and as I solve this, I get x equals 1/4. Okay, and then x equals -3/5. Okay, I will post this recording online if you need to go back and look at it. We got through everything except word problems. So Friday,